What if the people who tucked you in at night, who called you on your birthday, who cried at your bedside when you were sick, what if they were also the ones quietly erasing you? Not out of hatred, but out of love. And what if the cruelest part wasn't the erasure? It was that you kept letting them because you never remembered it was happening? Welcome back to Dad's True Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. I want you to picture the best sleep of your life. Not the kind where you toss and turn and wake up checking your phone at 3 a.m. I mean the kind of sleep that wraps around you like warm water. Deep, still. The kind where the world outside could be on fire and you wouldn't hear it crackling. That's how I slept that third morning at Lake Arrowhead. And I remember thinking, even before I opened my eyes, this is what retirement is supposed to feel like. I was 61 years old, recently retired from 28 years of civil engineering, and my 2 kids had surprised me with a 5-day fishing trip up in the California mountains. Just the 3 of us. No phones buzzing every 10 seconds, no meetings, no reason to be anywhere except right there on that dock with bad coffee and good silence. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. I was not. When I finally opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was the light. It was higher than it should have been. Mid-morning, maybe close to 10. Sloan and Reed were usually up by 6. Sloan, my daughter, operated like a military commander on a tight schedule. She once reorganized my entire kitchen on Christmas morning before breakfast was ready. The woman did not sleep in. Ever. So right away something felt tilted. I sat up slowly, my back reminding me, as it did every single morning, that I was not 35. And I called out from the bedroom. Sloan? Hey, Reed. Nothing. Not the kind of nothing where you know someone's just in the other room being quiet. The heavy kind. The kind that has weight to it. I pulled on my flannel shirt, shuffled out into the main room of the lodge and stopped. Both beds. Made. Perfectly. Sloan's duffel bag. Gone. Reed's fishing jacket that had been hanging on the hook by the door since day one. Gone. The kitchen counter where we'd lined up our groceries cleared. The car keys we'd hung on the little wooden peg by the entrance. Gone. I stood there in my socks on that cold hardwood floor, and I actually laughed, out loud, to no one, because my first thought, I want you to understand this, my very first thought was, these 2 jokers are pranking me. I genuinely believed that. I walked to the window expecting to see Reed crouched behind the truck, trying not to laugh, with Sloan standing nearby pretending she had nothing to do with it, while absolutely having everything to do with it. The driveway was empty. The truck was gone. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. Not there. I checked my jacket pocket. Nothing. I went to the small table by the door where I always set my wallet before bed. Gone. Now I want to pause here, because this is where a normal person would start panicking. And I'd like to tell you I was calm and rational and methodical. But what I actually did was stand in the middle of that lodge and say, out loud, to absolutely nobody, what in the actual? And then I stopped myself. Because even alone, 61 years of Midwestern manners don't just evaporate. I checked every drawer, every cabinet, under both mattresses, in the bathroom where I found one thing they'd left behind, a single orange prescription bottle sitting on the edge of the sink, no name on the label, just a white sticker with 3 words typed in plain font, take one daily. I picked it up and shook it, nearly full. I turned it over, nothing else. No pharmacy logo. No dosage information. No doctor's name. I set it back down like it might bite me. Here's what I told myself. Because this is what Owen Cole does. Owen Cole finds the logical explanation. 28 years of engineering trained me to locate the rational answer and stand on it like solid ground. They went for supplies. They forgot to leave a note. They'll be back by noon and Sloan will walk through that door with coffee and a perfectly reasonable explanation. And Reed will be behind her doing that thing he does where he almost smiles but stops himself, because smiling too much would compromise his whole mysterious younger brother brand. Noon came, then 2 o'clock, then 5. By the time the sun started dropping behind the tree line, I had walked the perimeter of the lodge 4 times, flagged down exactly 0 passing cars on the dirt road, and eaten the only thing left in the kitchen, half a sleeve of crackers and a can of soup I heated on the stove because at least they'd left the gas on. Small mercies. I sat on the porch steps as the sky turned that deep bruised purple it gets in the mountains, just before full dark, and for the first time all day, I let myself feel what was actually happening. My children had left me, not forgotten me, not gotten turned around somewhere, left, deliberately, quietly, while I slept that deep, still, warm water sleep that I'd thought was rest but was starting to feel in hindsight like something closer to arranged. And that's when it hit me, a memory, thin and flickering like a candle in a draft. Not from this trip, from somewhere further back. I saw myself sitting in a room, white walls, bright light, and a man in a gray sweater leaning toward me saying something I couldn't quite hear. And Sloane was there, beside me, holding my hand so tightly, her knuckles were pale. The memory lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then it was gone. I pressed my fingers to my temples. What was that? I knew that room. I knew that feeling, that specific, anxious sitting up straight feeling of being told something important. But the details wouldn't come. Like trying to grab smoke. I told myself it was the stress. Told myself I was tired and hungry and scared. And my brain was doing what brains do under pressure. Pulling up old footage at random. I believed that. I shouldn't have. That night, I slept on the couch with every light in the lodge on, which felt ridiculous and also completely necessary. Somewhere around midnight, I heard a car on the dirt road and I was off that couch so fast I nearly took the coffee table with me, stumbling to the window. But it passed without slowing. I stood at the glass long after the headlights disappeared, staring into the dark between the trees. And I noticed something I hadn't during the day. A small wooden sign nailed to the pine tree directly across from the lodge's front door. It had been there the whole time. I must have walked past it a dozen times. I opened the door and squinted in the cold night air. 4 words, hand-painted in red. You've been here before. Stay with me. Because what I find in the morning changes everything I thought I knew about the last 3 years of my life. And the man on the national news broadcast isn't a stranger. He's the reason I was brought here in the first place. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. I want you to think about something for a second. Think about a song you haven't heard in 15 years, one you'd completely forgotten existed, and then one random Tuesday afternoon it comes on in a grocery store, and before the second bar even hits, you know every single word. Your mouth is moving before your brain catches up. Your body remembered what your mind had buried. That's what the sign did to me. You've been here before. 4 words, hand-painted, red letters on weathered pine, and the moment I read them, something in my chest didn't panic. It recognized, like a door creaking open in a house you were certain was empty. I stood on that porch in the cold mountain air, probably looking like a man who'd just been told the earth was flat and was genuinely reconsidering everything. And I said, out loud, to the trees, to God, to whoever painted that sign, okay, so what exactly is going on here? The trees did not answer. Deeply unhelpful. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in the armchair closest to the window with the orange prescription bottle on the table beside me, turning it over in my fingers every few minutes like it was going to eventually decide to explain itself. Take 1 daily. No name, no pharmacy, no doctor. I'm an engineer by trade. I spent nearly 3 decades calculating load-bearing thresholds, stress fracture points, the exact amount of pressure a structure can absorb before it stops holding and starts breaking. And sitting in that chair, I applied the same thinking to myself. What do I actually know? 1. My children brought me here and left while I slept. 2. They took everything. Wallet, phones, keys, bags, deliberate, organized. This was not a panic. This was a plan. 3. There was an unmarked prescription bottle in the bathroom with my crackers and my soup and my cold hardwood floors and my absolute confusion. 4. I had a memory I couldn't hold. A white room. Sloane's pale knuckles. A man in a gray sweater speaking words I couldn't retrieve. And 5. Someone had been here before me. Or rather, and this is the part that made me set the bottle down very carefully, someone wanted me to know that I had been here before me. I pressed my palms flat on my knees and took a long breath. Owen, I said to myself, either you're losing your mind or someone helped you lose it. Figure out which one before you do anything else. Sound advice. I wish I'd been quicker about taking it. Morning came gray and damp, mist sitting low between the pines like the mountain was thinking too hard. I found 2 things I'd missed the day before in my panicked sweep of the lodge. First, Behind the loose baseboard panel beneath the kitchen sink, a folded piece of paper. Notebook paper. Handwritten in small, careful letters that I recognized immediately, because I'd seen them on birthday cards and grocery lists, and sticky notes on my refrigerator for 30 years. It was Sloane's handwriting. I unfolded it slowly, the way you open something when you already suspect it's going to rearrange you. It said, "Dad, by the time you find this, you'll be scared and angry, and you'll think we abandoned you. I need you to trust that we did not. There's so much we have to tell you. And we tried. We've tried more times than you know. The doctor said the only way forward was for you to find it yourself. Don't fight the memories when they come. Let them in. We love you more than you will ever understand. S." I read it 4 times. Then I folded it very precisely back along its original creases, put it in my shirt pocket, and sat down on the kitchen floor because my legs had simply decided they were done standing for the moment. More times. Plural. The second thing I found was outside, around the back of the lodge near the woodpile. A tin box, the kind people use for storing keepsakes or letters. Green, slightly rusted at the corners. My name was written on the lid in black marker. Owen, not Dad, not Mr. Cole. Just Owen. Like whoever left it wasn't entirely sure which version of me would find it. Inside the tin, 3 photographs and a small folded card. I looked at the photographs first. The first one was of me, standing right here, this exact lodge, this exact porch, smiling. One arm around Sloane, one arm around Reed. Taken from a distance, slightly off angle, like someone grabbed it quickly. On the back, in Reed's handwriting, Trip 1. He made it to day 4. I flipped to the second photograph. Me again. Same lodge. Different flannel shirts. My hair is slightly longer. Standing at the dock alone, staring at the water. On the back, Trip 2. He found the sign. Didn't make it to morning. I didn't know what morning meant. I told myself I didn't want to know. I was lying to myself. Third photograph. Me. Sitting in this exact armchair, the one I'd spent the night in, head tilted back, asleep, the orange prescription bottle on the table right beside me. On the back, Reed's handwriting again, but this time the letters were slightly less steady. Trip 3. He took the pill. We had to start over. I set the photographs down on the woodpile and stood very still, for what felt like a long time. I had been here before, not once, 3 times, and every single time something had happened, something had reset, and I'd gone home to my quiet, retired life in Sacramento, with absolutely no memory of any of it. 3 fishing trips, 3 versions of this exact morning. 3 times my children had sat across from me at dinner or called me on a Sunday or hugged me at Christmas. Knowing what they knew, while I smiled and talked about the weather and asked Reed if he was seeing anyone. The card in the tin was short. Just 1 line, no signature. This time, Owen, don't run from what you remember. And right on cue, as if whatever part of my brain that had been locked behind a heavy door finally decided the door was the problem, the memories started coming. Not gently. The white room again, sharper now. I was sitting in a chair with armrests, and the man in the gray sweater was leaning forward with a pen in his hand and a chart on the clipboard, and he was saying calmly, the way doctors say things they've clearly rehearsed, "Owen, what I'm describing is called severe episodic dissociative amnesia. What happens is every 72 hours your brain essentially performs a hard reset. You lose access to the previous cycle of memory almost entirely. You function normally within each window, but when the reset occurs," and I heard myself say in that memory, with this exhausted, already defeated voice that didn't sound like the Owen Cole I thought I was, "How long has this been happening?" And the man in the gray sweater, Dr. Harmon, the name surfaced like something floating up from deep water. Dr. Harmon looked at Sloane before he looked back at me, just briefly, the way doctors look at the family member who knows more than the patient does. "Owen," he said carefully, "it's been 2 years. I came back to the woodpile, to the mist, to the tin box in my hands. 2 years. I had lost 2 years of my life in 72-hour pieces, over and over, like a film reel someone kept cutting and splicing and cutting again. And my children had been there for all of it, watching me forget, helping me start over, carrying the full weight of it while I woke up every 3 days thinking everything was fine. I pressed the back of my hand against my mouth, because the thing that was breaking me, not the condition, not the lost years, not even the 3 fishing trips I didn't remember, was picturing Reed and Sloane driving away from this lodge, knowing how it ended before, and choosing to try again anyway. That's not abandonment. That's the bravest, most desperate act of love I can imagine. But here's the thing, and stay with me because this is where it pivots. When I finally went back inside, dried my face, drank water from the tap, because it was that or nothing, and sat down in front of the small television set in the corner of the lodge that I hadn't once thought to turn on in 3 days, the national news was on, and the face on the screen stopped me so completely that the glass slipped from my hand and hit the floor, and I didn't even look down. Because the face on the screen, wanted for federal wire fraud, identity falsification, and the illegal dissolution of protected medical research accounts across 4 states, that face belonged to someone I knew, someone who shared my last name, someone who was not my son and not my daughter, someone I had not thought about in years, because there are people you cut from your life so cleanly you almost convince yourself they were never in it. The crawler at the bottom of the screen read, Federal Fugitive, Dwight Cole, Last Seen, Northern California. I looked at the window, at the pine trees, at the mountains sitting heavy and gray in the morning mist. Northern California. I sat down very slowly and said, again, to no one, to the room, to 3 years of missing time, Dwight. And for the first time since I'd woken up in this empty lodge, I wasn't confused. I was afraid. I haven't just been losing my memory. Someone has been using it against me. If you've been listening for a while and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do, but it's what keeps this whole thing running. So, thank you for real. I need you to understand something about fear. Real fear, not the jump scare kind, not the horror movie kind where you spill your popcorn and laugh at yourself 3 seconds later. I mean the kind that settles into your bones like cold water filling a room, slowly, steadily, until you realize you've been standing in it up to your neck without noticing. That's what seeing Dwight Cole's face on that screen did to me, because it didn't just scare me, it unlocked me. Dwight Cole was my younger brother, half-brother, technically, same father, different mothers, different zip codes, different everything. We'd grown up parallel to each other the way 2 train tracks run alongside without ever actually touching. My mother raised me in Ohio, steady and quiet. His mother raised him in Nevada, which I always privately felt explained a great deal about him. We'd had exactly 1 significant period of closeness, a 4-year stretch in our 40s when our father got sick, and we'd been forced into the same rooms, the same hospitals, the same uncomfortable conversations about legacy and money and what family actually means when it's being stress tested. And during those 4 years, I'd made one catastrophic mistake. I'd trusted him. The memories were coming faster now, not trickling, pouring, like someone had finally found the valve and cranked it all the way open. I sat in that armchair, and I stopped trying to manage them, and I just let them come, the way Sloane's note told me to, the way I should have done 3 trips ago. And what came back was this. 18 months before that first fishing trip, I had been contacted by a research foundation, medical, privately funded. They were conducting a longitudinal study on a rare neurological condition, severe episodic dissociative amnesia, and they needed participants who met a very specific biological profile. I remembered sitting across from Dr. Harmon for the first time. His gray sweater, his careful voice, the way he explained that I'd been recommended for the study by a family member who believed I was already exhibiting early symptoms. I remembered asking which family member. I remembered Dr. Harmon looking briefly uncertain before he said, "A Mr. Dwight Cole." He indicated he was your brother. I remembered the pause I'd taken before I nodded and said, "Half-brother," like that distinction mattered, like that one-word correction was going to protect me from anything. What I didn't know then, what the memories were now handing me in pieces, each one snapping into place like the tumblers of a lock, was that Dwight hadn't contacted Dr. Harmon out of concern. He'd contacted him out of calculation, because our father's estate, tied up in a medical research trust worth approximately $4 million, had a very specific disbursement clause, one that Dwight's lawyers had found and Dwight's mind had weaponized. If either beneficiary was determined to be cognitively incapacitated, unable to manage their own affairs, unable to maintain coherent long-term memory, their share of the trust would transfer automatically to the remaining competent beneficiary. $4 million. And all Dwight needed was a diagnosis, not a real one. I stood up from the armchair so fast I knocked it backward, because it was all there now, the whole architecture of it, ugly and precise, and almost impressive in the way that truly evil plans sometimes are when you finally see them whole. Dwight hadn't just reported symptoms to Dr. Harmon. He'd created them. The prescription bottle, the one with no label, no name, just take one daily, wasn't a mystery medication. It was the mechanism. A compound, I didn't know the name, I'm an engineer, not a pharmacologist, but something that, taken consistently, induced the exact pattern of memory disruption that Dr. Harmon had been documenting, measuring, and officially recording for 18 months. Dwight had been getting to me before every appointment, before every evaluation, slipping it into my coffee, my food, and this is the part that made me press both hands flat against the kitchen wall and breathe very deliberately for 30 seconds. My vitamins. The daily vitamins I took every morning were like clockwork because my doctor recommended them, and I was the kind of man who followed the doctor's recommendations. Dwight had replaced them for months, and I had taken them every single morning, washed them down with water, thinking I was taking care of myself. While he sat across from me at Sunday dinners and asked how I was feeling, and listened to me say, "Fine, just a little foggy lately," and nodded with his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're getting older, Owen. It happens." I put my fist through the cabinet door. I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not sorry. But here's what Dwight hadn't calculated. He hadn't calculated Sloane. The memories showed me that too. My daughter, sitting alone in her car outside my house one evening about 14 months ago, watching Dwight's car pull away from my driveway at an hour he had no legitimate reason to be there. Sloane, who noticed everything, who organized Christmas mornings and remembered every detail, who had her father's engineering brain wrapped in her mother's instincts. Sloane had pulled the thread. She'd taken my vitamins to a lab. She'd found Dr. Harmon herself, separately from the outside, presenting as a concerned daughter, and she'd started asking questions that made him uncomfortable enough to start asking his own. And when she told Reed, my quiet son who measured his words and watched everything, Reed, who had spent 3 years working adjacent to federal financial crimes, before quietly leaving that career for reasons he'd never fully explained to me, Reed had recognized immediately what Dwight had built, and exactly which federal statutes it shattered. My children hadn't taken me to Lake Arrowhead to abandon me. They'd taken me there to protect me while Reed and Sloane's contacts finished building the case, the empty lodge, the missing wallet, the no phone, no ID, no way to be found isolation. It wasn't cruelty. It was a safe house strategy. Keep me off the grid, unreachable while everything collapsed around Dwight Cole at a federal level. And the prescription bottle they'd left, that was the real one. Dr. Harmon's actual prescription. The legitimate compound that, taken consistently, would begin reversing what Dwight's version had done. They'd left me the antidote. They'd left me Sloane's note. They'd left me the tin box so that when the memories came back, and they believed they would come back, they trusted they would, I'd have the full picture waiting for me. My children had played this as carefully as Dwight had played his game. They'd just played it with love instead of greed. I picked the orange prescription bottle up off the bathroom sink. I opened it. I took one. Then I walked back to the television, sat down in front of Dwight Cole's face on the national news broadcast, and I let myself feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, because I hadn't been able to hold on to feelings long enough for them to fully form. I felt clear. 3 hours later, a car came up the dirt road, and this time it slowed. This time it stopped. The doors opened and I was off the couch and across that lodge in 4 steps, and Sloane came through the door first. And I want to tell you I was composed and measured about the whole thing, but the truth is, I held on to my daughter in that doorway for a long time without saying anything at all. Reed came in behind her and stood slightly to the side the way he always did, hands in his jacket pockets. And when I finally looked at him over Sloane's shoulder, his jaw was tight in the way that meant he was holding something back. I reached out and grabbed the back of his neck and pulled him in, and he made this sound, this short, sharp exhale, like he'd been holding his breath for 3 years, and had only just now remembered he was allowed to stop. We stood there, the 3 of us, in that cold, empty lodge that had held 3 versions of this same morning, and nobody said anything for a while. Sloane pulled back first. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady because she was Sloane. "Dad, do you remember?" she asked. "All of it," I said. And Reed said quietly, almost to himself, "It worked." Now, here is the part of the story I want you to lean in for, because I did say revenge, and I am a man of my word. Dwight Cole was arrested 14 hours after his face appeared on that national news broadcast. Federal agents. 4 counts of financial fraud, 2 counts of identity falsification, and 1 count, the one Reed had spent the better part of a year helping build with his former colleagues. 1 beautiful airtight count of deliberate pharmaceutical manipulation, resulting in documented cognitive harm. They found the compound in a storage unit registered under a shell company Dwight had set up in Reno. They found 18 months of emails between him and a disgraced pharmacologist who'd lost his license in 2019. They found the falsified intake notes he'd fed to Dr. Harmon's study, manufactured symptom reports, fake witness statements, a whole careful fiction built to make Owen Cole look like a man falling apart at the seams. They found all of it, because Reed had made sure they would. The trust disbursement was reversed. Every penny. The estate returned to its original split, and Dwight's legal fees, which were considerable because Dwight had always believed in spending money he hadn't earned yet, consumed his share down to almost nothing before the first hearing was even finished. But the moment I savored, the moment I have turned over in my mind on quiet evenings since, the way you turn a smooth stone in your palm, was this. Dwight's attorney requested that I provide a recorded statement confirming I had no lasting cognitive impairment, that I was, in the court's language, of sound mind and full recollection. And I sat down in front of that camera, clear-eyed, sharp, every memory intact and accounted for. And I gave them 45 minutes of the most detailed, precise, chronologically perfect testimony they had ever received from anyone in that proceeding. Dates, conversations, dosage timelines, financial maneuvers, all of it. The attorney reportedly stopped the recording twice to confer with his client. Dwight Cole took a plea deal within the week. The last time I saw my brother, half-brother technically, and that distinction matters now more than ever, was across a courtroom. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished in the specific way that men who've built themselves on other people's losses tend to look when those losses are finally returned. He looked at me once right before the judge spoke. I looked back. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I remembered everything. And he knew it. I still go fishing sometimes. Real trips now. No agenda. No strategy. No orange bottles and carefully arranged disappearances. Just me, a decent rod, bad coffee, and if I'm lucky, one of my kids on the dock beside me complaining about the early hour. Sloane still reorganizes things she has no business reorganizing. Reed still almost smiles but stops himself just short. And I wake up every morning knowing exactly who I am, exactly where I've been, and exactly what it cost the people who love me to bring me back. I take my real pill every morning. I remember everything. And I am, finally, fully, irreversibly, awake. Because here's what Dwight Cole never understood about me. You can steal a man's memory, but you cannot steal what his children are made of. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of the Sphere.